The storm hit Cleveland like it had a personal grudge. Snow wasn't just falling, it was attacking, slapping sideways through the air, driven by a wind that screamed across Lake Erie at nearly 40 miles per hour. Visibility came and went in violent flashes. 1 second, you could see the hash marks. The next, the entire field looked like a blank page. And sitting in the middle of that chaos, with the temperature hovering just above freezing, a rookie quarterback stepped onto the field with the kind of pressure most players spend their whole careers trying to avoid. This wasn't just another game for Shedeur Sanders. It wasn't even about winning or losing, not yet. This was a test, a brutal, unforgiving trial that would reveal whether he truly belonged under the weight of an NFL franchise that has spent decades searching for stability. The kind of test where there are no excuses, no rookie moments, and no room for fear. A test delivered by nature itself, wrapped in wind, ice, and expectations. Every step he took, the snow swallowed his cleats. Every throw he attempted fought through a wall of air thick enough to knock a pass off course by 10 yards. Every decision carried the weight of a city that has spent years watching promising quarterbacks crumble the moment the lights hit them. Yet even in the middle of this frozen circus, even as the cold sunk into his bones, he kept going. He kept fighting. He kept trying to prove he was the one thing Cleveland hasn't had in decades: hope. But hope has a strange way of dying in Cleveland. Because while Shedeur was tightening his chin strap and preparing to do the impossible, something else was happening, something far more dangerous than the weather. Something that wouldn't show up on the pregame forecast or the injury list. Something no statistic could measure. A problem that's been quietly rotting inside this franchise for years, long before Sanders ever put on the uniform. A problem that has swallowed quarterbacks, coaches, and entire seasons without a hint of mercy. In fact, you could argue that what happened during this game didn't start with a snap, or a throw, or even a mistake. It started long before that, behind closed doors, in meeting rooms, in decisions made months ago. Decisions that built the foundation for what was about to unfold. Decisions that would turn a rookie's hardest challenge into something even more twisted. On the sidelines, you could feel it. In the stands, fans sensed it. Even the players seemed to recognize it, the uneasy feeling that something was off, something deeper than weather or matchups or game plans. And as the opening kickoff cut through the wind and disappeared into the swirling snow, one thing became painfully clear. This game wasn't going to be remembered for the conditions. It wasn't going to be remembered for the opponent. It wasn't even going to be remembered for the final score. If you're enjoying this video and loving the content, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. It really helps us know what you want to see more of. And why keep all the excitement to yourself? Share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves NFL drama. It was going to be remembered for what it exposed. Because buried underneath that blizzard was a truth the Browns have been running from for years. A truth Shedeur Sanders was about to discover the hard way. And once the storm cleared, everyone watching would realize the same thing. The real danger wasn't the weather. The real danger was the Cleveland Browns themselves. Before anyone even starts pointing fingers, you have to understand one thing clearly. Shedeur Sanders did his job. In conditions that would have turned most quarterbacks into human icicles, he walked onto that field and delivered the one thing every coach begs for, especially in a storm: control. While the snow whipped across his face and the wind tried to rip the ball out of his hands, Sanders kept the offense steady. Not explosive, not flashy, steady. And in a game like this, that's more valuable than gold. Let's start with the basics. 16 completions on 25 attempts. That's a number you almost never see from a rookie in weather like this. Veteran quarterbacks with playoff resumes have melted under far lighter conditions. Yet Shedeur found windows, picked his spots, and refused to force the ball into danger. More importantly, he did something most rookies struggle with even indoors. He protected the football. 0 turnovers. Not a single throw that put the 49ers defense in position to flip the game. You can't overstate how rare that is for a first-year quarterback staring into a blizzard. And then there was the touchdown, the kind of throw you don't expect to see from a rookie with a slippery ball and a soaked jersey. Harold Fannin Jr. sprinted down the left side, running a wheel route designed to test timing, touch, and guts all at once. Pressure closed in from the blind side. Most young quarterbacks either freeze or panic in that moment. Sanders didn't. He stepped up, reset his feet, and dropped a pass that cut through the wind like it didn't exist. Fannin caught it at the 10, powered through 2 defenders, and crossed the goal line in what looked like a scene ripped straight out of a highlight reel. National voices noticed immediately. Shannon Sharpe fired off a post praising how competent the offense suddenly looked. LeBron James gave his stamp of approval. Even Skip Bayless, who rarely compliments anyone, said they finally let Sanders throw a real NFL pass. That kind of respect doesn't come from sympathy. It comes from execution. And here's the part most fans overlook. He kept them in striking distance. He didn't get overwhelmed by the storm. He didn't let the 49ers' pressure shake him. He didn't crumble when the run game stalled or when the pocket began collapsing. He adjusted, trusted his reads, and moved the chains when the opportunity appeared. 6 of his first 8 passes were completions, not because the offense was rolling, but because Sanders was making the right decisions. If you isolate only what Shedeur controlled, his throws, his poise, his ball security, he played the exact kind of game a coaching staff dreams about from a rookie under impossible conditions. He did everything necessary to give his team a chance to win. And for a brief moment, as he jogged to the sideline after that touchdown, it looked like the Browns finally had something they could build on. But that moment didn't last. Because while Shedeur was doing everything right, something else was already unraveling behind him, something he couldn't fix, no matter how well he played. The momentum should have been on Cleveland's side. They had just taken the lead, the crowd was roaring through the wind, and for the first time all afternoon, you could feel confidence creeping into the stadium. But that's exactly when everything began to unravel, not because of anything Shedeur Sanders did, but because the Browns managed to ignite a collapse entirely on their own. The first spark came on a routine punt. Nothing fancy, nothing dangerous. Just a simple kick meant to flip field position and let the defense continue doing its job. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. The coverage unit hesitated for a split second, just long enough for Sky Moore to find a seam. And once he found it, he was gone. 66 yards later, San Francisco was celebrating with the ball at Cleveland's 16-yard line. They didn't need a long drive. They didn't need creativity. Christian McCaffrey took 3 snaps, walked into the end zone, and suddenly the 49ers were right back in control. That wasn't a defensive failure. That wasn't a quarterback mistake. That was a special teams meltdown so severe it shifted the entire tone of the game. But the Browns weren't done sabotaging themselves. Early in the third quarter, down by only a few points and facing a manageable 4th and 1, the coaching staff made a decision that still has fans shaking their heads. Instead of trusting the quarterback who had just delivered a picture-perfect touchdown, they handed the ball and the entire moment to Harold Fannin Jr. in a trick play formation that fooled absolutely no one. Before he could even secure the snap, the ball slipped loose. A fumble. A gift. San Francisco recovered at Cleveland's 32-yard line, and within moments Brock Purdy was crossing the goal line untouched. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't daring. It was a gamble that detonated instantly, turning a close game into a climbing hill Cleveland wasn't built to scale. Then came the final blow, the one that felt like the universe was mocking the Browns. Midway through the fourth quarter, the defense forced a punt, signaling a potential momentum shift. This should have been the moment Shedeur got another shot to pull the team back into the fight. Instead, Gage Larvadain watched the ball drop toward his hands, hesitated, and let it bounce right off him. The snow didn't cause it. The wind didn't force it. It was a mental mistake at the worst possible time. And once again, the 49ers scooped it up deep in Cleveland territory. 6 plays later, Joan Jennings caught a touchdown pass that effectively slammed the door shut on any comeback attempt. 3 touchdowns, all from short fields, all because of Cleveland's own mistakes. The 49ers didn't dominate. They didn't out-scheme or overwhelm. They simply accepted the gifts Cleveland wrapped for them and placed gently at their feet. And while Shedeur Sanders stood on the sideline watching his chance slip away, it became painfully clear. The real opponent wasn't the weather, and it was San Francisco. It was the Browns themselves. But the fallout from these disasters was only the beginning. Long before the final score appeared on the scoreboard, Shedeur Sanders was battling forces far bigger than a pass rush. Anyone who watched this game closely could see it. The rookie wasn't just fighting the 49ers defense. He was fighting the conditions, the pressure, the limitations of his own offense, and the weight of a franchise that has a long history of collapsing at the worst possible time. And somehow, despite all of that, he kept the Browns alive longer than they deserved. Start with the field itself. This wasn't football weather, it was survival weather. Wind gusts hit 36 miles per hour, bending throws mid-flight and turning simple checkdowns into adventures. Snow blew directly into his face on dropbacks, blurring sightlines and making timing routes feel like guessing games. Even veteran quarterbacks would have trouble reading defenses through conditions like this. Yet Sanders stepped into each snap with a level of composure that didn't match his experience. Then there was the pressure. San Francisco came into this game with only 13 sacks on the entire season. Today, they smelled opportunity. They knew a rookie quarterback behind a shaky offensive line in a snowstorm would be vulnerable, and they were right. Sanders took 3 sacks, losing 34 yards. Each hit came with the kind of force that makes fans hold their breath. But the truth is simple. Any quarterback in his situation would have gone down. The pocket collapsed again and again, often before he could even reach his second read. People can point to his internal clock, and yes, it still needs work. He held onto the ball longer than ideal on a couple of snaps, but expecting a rookie to instantly master pocket timing in a blizzard, with bodies flying at him from every angle, is unrealistic. The fact that he avoided fumbles and kept the ball out of the defense's hands is impressive on its own. And let's be honest, he didn't have the luxury of leaning on a reliable support system. The run game sputtered. The offensive line struggled. Receivers slipped in the snow, breaking timing on several early routes. Every inch of progress felt like a fight, yet Sanders didn't force desperation throws. He didn't panic. He kept grinding for manageable yards and sustained drives, refusing to let chaos turn into turnovers. He wasn't just battling the defense or the weather. He was battling the atmosphere surrounding the franchise. The expectations, the anxiety, the history, the whispers online that Cleveland eats its quarterbacks alive. Walk into a building with that reputation, and every mistake feels amplified, every snap feels heavier. But instead of crumbling, Sanders managed the game with precision, caution, and surprising maturity. And here's the reality people don't want to confront. Most rookies would have folded. Most veterans would have struggled. Sanders kept them competitive while everything around him was falling apart: special teams, coaching decisions, and overall execution. He didn't play like a fifth-round pick. He didn't look overwhelmed. He looked like a quarterback doing everything in his power to keep his team afloat. But even that wasn't enough, because the real obstacles, the ones he couldn't control, were still waiting to show themselves.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button.
Long before the snowstorm, long before the muffed punts and trick play disasters, there was already a quiet debate forming around Shedeur Sanders' role in Cleveland. A debate that didn't start on the field, but online, on message boards, social feeds, and late-night talk segments. And while none of it is confirmed, the sheer volume of speculation has become impossible to ignore. Some fans believe the organization never truly wanted Sanders to succeed. Others think the coaching staff underestimated him. And then there are the whispers, unverified but persistent, that something deeper has been going on behind the scenes. Rumors suggest Kevin Stefanski wasn't thrilled about drafting another quarterback in the first place. Reports claim the front office had different priorities, and that Sanders fell into their laps more out of circumstance than conviction. Nothing official backs that up, but the speculation gained traction the moment Sanders arrived in Cleveland and found himself buried on the depth chart, fourth string, taking reps behind players who weren't even expected to see the field. It didn't help that Sanders didn't take a single practice snap with the starting offense for months. Fans noticed. Analysts questioned it. And when Dylan Gabriel went down and Sanders was suddenly pushed into action, people asked the obvious question: How does a rookie develop chemistry when he didn't even get reps with the players he's supposed to lead? Online discussions labeled it everything from negligence to internal sabotage. Again, these are opinions and theories, not proven facts, but the timing of everything certainly fueled the fire. Sanders wins his first career start, becomes the first Browns rookie QB to win a debut since 1995, and yet the organization still seemed hesitant to acknowledge what they had. The speculation didn't slow down after that. If anything, it intensified. Some fans claim the coaching staff treated him like a placeholder rather than a potential long-term starter. Others argue that the offensive game plans early on were intentionally conservative, limiting him to the safest, most basic reads instead of letting him actually play quarterback. Theories floated around suggesting the team wanted to protect their investment in Gabriel, and giving Sanders too many chances might complicate the depth chart politics. Whether any of that is true is impossible to say. What we can say is that Sanders stepped in without preparation, won games, and still didn't receive the typical treatment of a quarterback the franchise claimed to believe in. Then there's the draft night narrative, another source of endless speculation. 31 teams passed on Sanders, allowing him to drop into the 5th round. Many fans interpreted that as disrespect from the league. Some believe the Browns themselves didn't even expect him to be available. And when a player enters the building already fighting against the perception of being overlooked, every coaching decision takes on a different tone. But here's the truth beneath all the rumors. Whether it's sabotage, indifference, or simply poor planning, the result is the same. Sanders had to earn every inch of trust in an environment where nothing was handed to him. Not reps, not support, not even a clear development plan. And that's why the conversation keeps growing. Because when a rookie performs well and still seems like an afterthought, people start wondering what's really going on. And the deeper you look into Sanders' situation, the more it becomes clear that the issues around him didn't start on Sunday. They started long before he ever took his first snap. If you want to understand why so many people fear for Shedeur Sanders' future, you can't just look at this season. You have to look at the decades of wreckage behind him, the trail of quarterbacks who walked into Cleveland hoping to rewrite the franchise's story, only to become part of the same painful pattern. Because the Browns don't just have a quarterback problem. They have a quarterback legacy, and not the kind any franchise wants to be known for. Since 1999, Cleveland has started 42 different quarterbacks. 42. That's not a stat, that's a warning label. That's a number you expect from a revolving door, not an NFL franchise. Every one of those players arrived with some level of optimism. Some were drafted to be saviors, others were veterans brought in to stop the bleeding. All of them believed they could be the one to finally break the curse. And one by one, every single one of them was swallowed by the same system. Some failed because they weren't ready. Others failed because they were put in impossible situations. Coaches changed, schemes shifted, and front office plans dissolved before anyone could settle in. One year, the team wanted an athletic quarterback. The next year, they wanted a pocket passer. The following year, they wanted a project. No player could build momentum when the ground kept shifting under their feet. And through all that turnover, something more damaging happened. The organization forgot how to develop quarterbacks. Instead of giving rookies time, stability, and support, Cleveland often threw them into chaos and then acted shocked when things fell apart. Tim Couch took a beating behind an offensive line that couldn't protect him. Brady Quinn bounced between schemes and coordinators like he was changing TV channels. Colt McCoy showed flashes, but never had the infrastructure to grow. Johnny Manziel became a headline machine instead of a football project. Baker Mayfield revived the franchise, only to be discarded after one injured season. The list goes on, every name representing another chapter in the same cycle. That's the environment Shedeur walked into, a place where the quarterback position is less of a job and more of a battlefield, a place where hope has never survived for long. And what makes this history even more painful is how often the Browns wasted great defensive seasons. Myles Garrett is the latest example. He's having a historic year, chasing records, dominating games, doing everything a franchise player is supposed to do. And yet his efforts risk going to waste just like the stars who came before him. The pattern is always the same. The defense performs, the offense sputters, and when the losses pile up, the quarterback takes the blame. It's a cycle that never ends because the root of the problem is never addressed. It's never been just about talent. It's been about the franchise's inability to build around the one position that matters most. And now, Shedeur Sanders stands in the same spot those 42 quarterbacks once stood, trying to succeed in a place where so many before him fell. The question isn't whether he has talent. The question is whether Cleveland has changed enough to give him a real chance. Because history suggests that the problem isn't the quarterback. The problem is the Browns. And unless something finally breaks this cycle, Shedeur risks becoming just another name on a list that never should have existed in the first place. If you only looked at the box score, you might think the Browns' defense had an off day. But if you watched the game, really watched it, you saw a unit that fought with everything it had, only to watch all of its effort dissolve under the weight of mistakes it didn't make. Because the truth is simple. The defense did enough to win. They just didn't have enough help to survive the disaster happening around them. Cleveland's defense came into this game knowing they were facing one of the most efficient offenses in the league. Kyle Shanahan's scheme is built to create mismatches. Brock Purdy thrives when given clean reads. Christian McCaffrey is basically a cheat code for any coordinator smart enough to use him. And yet the Browns held the 49ers to just 241 total yards. That number alone should have been enough to control the game. Myles Garrett was a force of nature. Even in the snow, even with the wind ripping across the stadium, he played like the field conditions didn't apply to him. He recorded his 19th sack of the season, inching closer to Michael Strahan's record, and wrecked multiple drives that should have given Cleveland's offense extra chances. Every time the 49ers dropped back, you could feel the tension, because Garrett was always just one step away from blowing up the play. The rest of the front seven followed his lead. They clogged running lanes, disrupted timing, and forced Shanahan to abandon the rhythm his offense usually thrives on. Carson Schwezinger led the team with 10 tackles, flying around the field with the kind of urgency that shows a player understands the stakes. Whenever San Francisco tried to stretch the field horizontally, Cleveland closed the space faster than expected. Whenever they tried to attack vertically, the secondary held strong and forced Purdy into checkdowns. In any normal game, that level of defensive discipline wins you the day. In any normal game, holding the 49ers to under 300 yards would be headline news. But this wasn't a normal game. And the defense was trapped in a situation where their best efforts were repeatedly undone by problems they couldn't control. 3 times, 3 separate moments, the defense took the field with their backs against the wall, standing inside their own 20-yard line because of special teams' failures and turnover chaos. No defense, no matter how dominant, can survive that. Short fields turn elite units into helpless spectators. Touchdowns become nearly automatic. And each time the 49ers took advantage, the life drained out of Cleveland's sideline. It didn't matter that the Browns' pass rush was relentless. It didn't matter that their tackling was sharp or that their coverage held up longer than expected in the storm. None of it mattered because they were being asked to fix problems that weren't theirs. That's why this loss stings differently. The defense did everything required to give their rookie quarterback a chance. They fought through the weather, through San Francisco's offensive weapons, through impossible field position. But fighting only works when the rest of the team holds up its end of the bargain. And on this day, the Browns didn't, not even close. The defense kept them alive. The rest of the team let the game slip away. And no amount of effort, no amount of heroics could change that outcome. If this season has revealed anything, it's that the Cleveland Browns are standing at a crossroads, and the 2 paths ahead are represented by 2 quarterbacks who couldn't have more different journeys, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. One is a rookie with swagger, pressure, and generational expectations. The other is a late bloomer who clawed his way from obscurity into relevance. And now, as the Browns attempt to salvage the remaining pieces of their season, these 2 stories are colliding. Shedeur's path has never been quiet. From the moment he arrived in Cleveland, every move he made was watched, dissected, criticized, or celebrated. His confidence is polarizing. His presence is undeniable. And his ability, when the organization actually puts him in a position to succeed, is real. But Shedeur's journey isn't just about talent. It's about resistance. It's about politics inside the building. It's about earning trust from a franchise that has been burned by quarterbacks for 2 decades. And above all, it's about proving he can lead a veteran locker room while carrying the legacy of a last name that comes with both a spotlight and a target. Cam Ward's story is the opposite. Quiet, underrated, more about survival than stardom. He wasn't handed headlines or expectations. He earned every inch of progress through doubt and adversity. His rise wasn't fueled by hype, it was fueled by necessity. Ward's strength comes from resilience. He is the quarterback who will do anything the coaching staff asks, without headlines, without noise, without drama. The locker room respects his grind. Coaches like his discipline. And the front office sees a quarterback who won't divide the building. So now the Browns must confront a reality they've spent all season trying to avoid. 2 quarterbacks, 2 philosophies, 1 franchise that has to choose a direction. With Shedeur, you get dynamism. You get upside. You get the chance to reshape the identity of a broken franchise around a player who believes, truly believes, that he can be the one to fix it. But with that upside comes volatility, comes expectation, comes the pressure to support him with competent coaching, clean decision-making, and a clear organizational vision. With Ward, you get stability, a steady hand, a safer floor, a quarterback who won't push the boundaries but won't blow up the building either. But with that stability comes limitations. Ward may keep you afloat, but he won't elevate you when everything else collapses. And here's the real truth. The future of the Browns depends on who they decide to become, not just who they decide to start. If they want to rebuild the offense from the ground up and lean into talent, swagger, and explosive potential, Shedeur is the path. If they want to minimize chaos, avoid drama, and rely on defense and structure, Ward is the path. But the franchise cannot ride the fence anymore. The locker room feels the divide. The fan base sees the tension. The league senses the uncertainty. 2 quarterbacks, 2 journeys, 1 decision that will define the next era of Cleveland football. The road ahead isn't just Shedeur versus Ward. It's identity versus safety. Future versus comfort. Potential greatness versus predictable stability. And the Browns must choose, now. When the final whistle blew, most fans thought this game was just another painful chapter in the Browns' endless cycle of frustration. Another loss. Another quarterback controversy. Another week of headlines that say everything except the truth. But if you look deeper, past the score, past the blame, past the noise, this game exposed something far more important. Something that goes beyond Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, or any single decision on the field. It revealed exactly who the Browns are, and who they've been for years. Because the story of this game wasn't written in the final 2 minutes. It wasn't defined by 1 interception, 1 missed assignment, or 1 coaching decision. It was shaped by years of internal instability, mixed messaging, and leadership that can't pick a direction and stick to it. You could see it in the play calling. You could see it in the body language on the sidelines. You could see it in the confusion about who this team wants to become. And whether fans realized it or not, this was the moment everything finally boiled over. Shedeur didn't walk into a stable environment. He walked into a franchise still unsure of what it stands for. A franchise that keeps searching for an identity but never commits long enough to build one. So instead of being developed, Shedeur was dropped into a tug-of-war between philosophies, egos, and expectations. And the result wasn't just chaos, it was predictable. Meanwhile, Cam Ward, the quiet worker in the shadows, became the symbol of what the front office has always leaned toward. Safety, reliability, a quarterback who won't shake the building. But as this game showed, safety doesn't save you when the structure is already crumbling from within. Ward didn't fail. He simply walked into the same storm Shedeur did. And that's the point. This game wasn't about who the better quarterback is. It was about how the Browns create situations where no quarterback can thrive. The defense did everything it could. The players fought. The talent was there. But the organization failed to give the team a foundation strong enough to survive the pressure. What this game really revealed is that the Browns aren't losing because of ability. They're losing because of identity. And until they confront that truth, it won't matter who lines up under center. Shedeur could turn into a superstar. Ward could evolve into a steady, long-term starter. But neither will reach their ceiling if the environment around them keeps collapsing. Still, there's a twist, because sometimes hitting rock bottom is the moment everything finally changes. Sometimes, one messy, dramatic, tension-filled game forces a franchise to stop, look in the mirror, and admit what they've been avoiding. And for the first time in a long time, the Browns have a choice. Not between two quarterbacks, but between two futures. This game didn't just expose the problem. It revealed the roadmap. Now the question is simple. Will Cleveland finally follow it, or repeat the same story all over again?
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.